Mao en route to Anyuan. It's by an unknown artist, but it's based on an oil painting by the artist Liu Qinhua. This um, poster was made in 1969. It's a color lithograph. The context is back in 1922, so 47 years before our poster was made, the area of coal mining in China, in the southeast area of China, they had 20,000 coal miners go on strike. And Mao Zedong, who's seen here in this poster as a really young guy, which he was at the time, he went down to the coal miners' strike and helped them win their strike. And that event is what's being captured in the poster, 47 years later. So Mao Zedong, in addition to leading that strike when he was really young, he ended up also kind of ending the imperial rule of China and taking over control of China in 1949 and turning it to a rule by one party, the Communist Party. And he ruled until 1976. So about 27 years he was in charge of China. And here he is. And here's another poster about him being that red sun for China. So as a leader of China, he had some pretty, let's call them wacky policies. Like the first thing he tried in order to get China up to date with the industrialized world is he created what's called the Great Leap Forward, where people would make in their backyards, literally in their backyards, a furnace that they would use to make steel. So they would take anything in their house that could be made into steel, and they would get these kilns going, and look at these people, they would create steel. It was a horrible disaster, as you can well imagine. Another thing that he did as the leader of China, just like in Soviet Russia, he collectivized farms for 25 years. People gave up their farms. They worked together in a collectivized farm. You can see all of these people working together to plow and to harvest, in this case, rice. And the initial act of collectivizing created an incredible famine in China for 3 years, where anywhere between 15 to 45 million people were killed. The numbers weren't quite released to the outside world, but it was disastrous. And then, so we've got the Great Leap Forward, collectivization of farms, and then kind of toward the end of his rule of China, he felt like he was really losing connection to the people, or wanted to test his power to motivate the people. And so he created what's called the Cultural Revolution, where he felt like not enough people in the country were acting true communist values. And so he enlisted the help of children. You can see here kids who should be in elementary school, junior high, high school, college. He convinced them all to leave school and study his little red book, it's called. I've got one in the classroom we can look at. And the idea was that these children were going to purge China of all Western thinking, all capitalist thinking. And one of the ways they did this was by attacking anybody who was older, wealthy, landowner, educated, anybody who had Western thoughts. They would be made to stand. I mean, this is an original picture on a stool in the middle of a town square with these signs around their necks talking about how they're believers in the West and capitalism and such. And then these wealthy, educated, seemingly capitalist people were also sent to remote camps throughout China, where they were forced to work on farms, study communism, study from Mao's little red book, which were his musings. And essentially, they were stripped of any life that they had created or built. He sent his own dentist, was sent off to a camp, was brought back when Mao ended up having some tooth issues, but pretty crazy. So how do you get children, people, college kids to follow you in this cultural revolution? Well, you create a poster like this. This poster is Chairman Mao en route to Anyuan. This poster is the most copied or printed off poster in the world. 900 million copies were made. There's one in our classroom. The form of it, though, so Mao would have been in his 70s when he put forth the Cultural Revolution. But the poster that's being used to show him as a great leader shows him in his 20s when he was back leading that coal mine strike in Anyuan. So, what is the form of the poster? Take a look here. Mao is above mountains, seemingly godlike. He is in the clouds. If he raised his arm, he'd be touching those clouds. He's placed in the center, both vertically, here's the distance. Both vertically and horizontally, he is in the center of this piece. It's like a Western oil painting in that he's stepping forward. His drapery defines his body. I mean, think of any of our Greek pieces. The chiaroscuro is being used, right, to show here's light and here's dark. And every little inch is painted. There's no negative space like there are in Travelers Among Mountains and Streams. So this is very Western looking. In terms of content, this is just a real positive portrayal of, the 70-some-year-old Mao. This is him in his youth. He's overcoming obstacles, like these mountains. He's building a classless society, a communist society. Look at the sun, right? It's shining on his face, shining on the front of him. Here it's shining on these mountain peaks. Then the other concept to know is that Chinese emperors, since the beginning of their dynastic cycle, they believed that if they were in power, they had the mandate of heaven, meaning the heavens were looking down on them, giving them the right to rule. And Mao is clearly up here in the heavens using that mandate of heaven to rule. It's like the approval. It's the stamp of approval. Okay, so the function is that this is propaganda for Mao's Cultural Revolution. This is a current statue that's at Anyuan. And this is also functions like Soviet realism. So it glorifies these totalitarian leaders who are supposed to be bringing, this equal communism economy to the fore. But they're definitely using totalitarian power, and it glorifies them. All right, that's Chairman Mao en route to Anyuan. The artist is unknown for the poster, but it's based on an oil painting by Liu Chunhua. It's made in 1969, and it's a color lithograph, which is another way of saying it's a poster.